In 1856, in the quiet Staffordshire town of Rugeley, a respected doctor stood accused of poisoning those closest to him. But what horrified Victorian England most was how long he had been getting away with it. A candle trembles in the dark. Inside a modest room in Rugeley, a man thrashes violently across a narrow bed. His back arches, fingers clawing the sheets, jaw clenched so tight it cracks the silence. Witnesses stare helplessly. One woman whispers a prayer. Another mutters, "Cor blimey, I've never seen a body fight death like that." At the foot of the bed stands a doctor, calm, still, watching. Dr. William Palmer, a man trusted by the town, a man who had treated half its families. And yet, as the convulsions grow worse, a terrible rumor spreads through the room. Someone whispers it first, then another. Then the word travels down the corridor like smoke, poison. But if that whisper were true, then the man watching the patient die might already know exactly why. And what the people of Rugeley would soon discover would shake Victorian England to its core. By the end of this investigation, you will understand how a country doctor became one of the most feared poisoners in Victorian history, how respected friends suddenly became suspicious witnesses, how science itself struggled to prove the crime, and why, even after the hanging was over, some still wondered if the truth had slipped through the fingers of justice. Because the case of Dr. William Palmer was not merely murder. It was something far more disturbing. It was betrayal hiding behind respectability. In the 1850s, Rugeley was the sort of town where nothing stayed secret long. A railway stop, a market square, a handful of inns, and one rather successful physician, Dr. William Palmer. He was educated, well-spoken, and by all appearances, prosperous. But behind closed doors, whispers painted a different picture. Palmer had a dangerous appetite, not for drink, not for women, but for gambling. Horse racing consumed him. Fortunes were won and lost in a single afternoon, and Palmer lost more often than he won. Soon debts piled high enough to crush a lesser man. Yet somehow, Palmer always seemed to find money. Insurance claims appeared, unexpected inheritances surfaced, and every so often, someone close to him died. A rum affair, the locals muttered. But no one yet suspected just how dark that pattern truly was. Because the man convulsing in that Rugeley bedroom would finally force the town to ask a question they had avoided for years. Why did death follow Dr. Palmer wherever he went? The dying man was John Cook, a young gambler, confident, healthy, and only days earlier he had won a handsome sum at the racetrack, enough money to settle Palmer's debts if Palmer could somehow get hold of it. And strangely, Palmer had taken a keen interest in Cook's health. Witnesses later described how the doctor insisted on personally preparing Cook's medicines. Powders, pills, small drafts poured carefully into glasses. Each dose meant to help the young man recover from what Palmer called a minor illness. But Cook only grew worse. His muscles began twitching. His body jerked violently. One witness later recalled in court, "It was the most dreadful sight I ever witnessed. The gentleman's limbs flew about as though some invisible hand had seized them, and yet the doctor attending him remained oddly composed. Even when Cook gasped his final breath, Palmer quickly signed the death certificate. Natural causes, case closed." But in the days that followed, a question refused to die. Because one man present during those final hours would later reveal something deeply unsettling, something he heard Palmer say. And once those words reached the authorities, the investigation began. But this was only the beginning, because Cook might not have been Palmer's first victim, and he certainly wasn't the only one. When rumors reached London, the authorities hesitated. After all, Dr. Palmer was respectable, a physician, a gentleman, Accusing such a man of poisoning would be a scandal. Yet whispers continued to grow. Soon investigators began looking backwards, and what they found was deeply troubling. Years earlier, Palmer's own wife had died suddenly. Doctors at the time blamed illness, but neighbors remembered violent sickness, convulsions, strange symptoms that sounded hauntingly familiar. Then came another discovery. Palmer's brother had also died unexpectedly. Again, Palmer handled the medical care. Again, the death was swift. And once more, insurance money followed. Victorian newspapers began to stir. One headline thundered across the country. Newspaper headline: Pattern interrupt the Rugeley dossier, Dorseter, terrible suspicions of poisoning. Soon, the town itself began turning against the man they once trusted. People avoided his surgery. Parents pulled their children closer when he passed. Even the local police began wondering whether the doctor had been hiding something in plain sight. But proving poison in the 1850s was no simple task, especially when the suspected toxin left almost no trace, which meant investigators faced a terrifying possibility. If Palmer truly was a poisoner, he might already have perfected the perfect crime. The poison suspected was strychnine, a vicious compound that causes muscles to lock in brutal spasms. Victims remain fully conscious while their bodies tear themselves apart. Exactly the symptoms John Cook displayed. But there was a problem. Victorian toxicology was still developing. Even the most skilled chemists struggled to detect tiny doses in a corpse. When Cook's body was examined, no clear trace appeared. The defense seized the opportunity immediately. Palmer's barrister reportedly declared, "Gentlemen of the jury, we are asked to condemn a man based not on proof, but on imagination." The courtroom murmured, because without chemical evidence, the prosecution's case looked dangerously thin, and yet suspicion refused to disappear. Then investigators uncovered something else, something that changed the tone of the entire case. Just days before Cook died, Palmer had purchased large quantities of strychnine, not once, but several times, and he offered a rather curious explanation. He claimed it was for killing stray dogs, a convenient answer, perhaps too convenient. Still, even this might not have secured a conviction, if not for one final detail hidden inside the post-mortem notes, a detail almost overlooked. And once experts understood what it meant, the entire case turned on its head. Enter Professor Alfred Swain Taylor, Britain's leading toxicologist. When he studied the medical reports, something caught his attention, a small observation, one that most doctors ignored. During Cook's final convulsions, his jaw locked rigidly shut. That detail mattered enormously, because in certain natural diseases resembling poisoning, the jaw typically relaxes, but with strychnine, it locks hard. Taylor realized the symptoms matched strychnine poisoning almost perfectly, even if the chemical itself had vanished. He later told the court, "Science may not always seize the poison itself, but it can recognize the violence it leaves behind." Suddenly, the case changed. What once seemed uncertain now appeared chillingly clear. The symptoms, the purchases, the financial motive, and the suspicious deaths surrounding Palmer's life. The open question haunting investigators for months now had an answer, but answering it would bring Victorian England face to face with something deeply uncomfortable. Because the killer might not be a criminal lurking in the shadows, but a doctor society trusted. The trial in 1856 became one of the most sensational court cases of the century. Crowds gathered outside the Old Bailey. Inside, the courtroom was packed, shoulder to shoulder. Some believed Palmer was a monster. Others believed he was the victim of hysteria. Witness after witness stepped forward, friends, servants, chemists who sold the poison, each piece tightening the noose around Palmer's reputation. Finally, the jury withdrew. The wait felt endless. Then, the verdict arrived. Guilty. Outside the court, word spread instantly. Palmer's done for. The once respected physician was sentenced to death. At Stafford Gall, the gallows were prepared. On the morning of his execution, thousands gathered to watch. As the trapdoor opened beneath him, one spectator reportedly muttered, "Right proper justice if ever there was." But even as the crowd dispersed, the debate refused to end, because some still asked a troubling question. Had science truly proven the crime, or merely convinced the jury? The case of William Palmer changed Victorian Britain forever. It forced courts to confront a terrifying truth. Poison could hide where violence could not, in teacups, in medicine bottles, in the quiet trust between patient and doctor. The trial also transformed forensic science. Experts realized that chemistry alone could not always reveal a killer. Sometimes the body itself tells the story. And perhaps that is the darkest lesson of all. Because history is full of villains who wore obvious masks. But men like Palmer, they looked respectable, helpful, even trustworthy, which means the most dangerous criminals in history were not always hiding. Sometimes they were invited inside. And if this case has stirred something in you, if you believe forgotten crimes deserve to be remembered, subscribe to Victorian Dark Mysteries. A new investigation drops every week. And if you've made it this far, you already know this channel is different.